chosen from one particular perspective.
Ever intended to install meters in all new homes and hope to introduce a new system of charges when the government's new council tax becomes operational.
To other news, and a murder inquiry is underway in Cheshire after the discovery of a man's body at Blacon near Chester. The man was found dead in his bath last night at his flat in Macefield Drive. The post-mortem has revealed that he'd drowned. A mass demonstration that was to take place this weekend at the British nuclear fuels plant at Sellafield in Cumbria has now been banned by the High Court in London. The NFL applied for an injunction saying the site simply couldn't cope with the numbers of people expected to attend.
The application for an injunction was made jointly by BNFL and tenants of land adjoining the site. Mr. Justice May said the company was entitled to withdraw permission it gave in February because it was given on the basis that only a few hundred people would attend. That estimate has since risen to 15,000. Irish rock band U2 also planned to attend the rally. The judge said he would order Greenpeace to issue a press release publicising that the event was cancelled if the group would not offer a legal undertaking to do so. The demonstration was in protest at a planned secondary processing plant at Sellafield.
A cross-party group of MPs from the region is travelling to Germany to try and persuade the German Parliament to remain committed to the European fighter aircraft project. More than 4,000 jobs depend on the fighter aircraft, which will be built at British aerospace plants in Lancashire. Now then, one of the country's most famous fighter planes has been celebrating an important birthday in Lancashire. As Krisha Kay reports, the Lightning is 30 years old today.
The Lightning took to the skies over Warton Airfield today, still in its original silver markings. The Lightning was Britain's first supersonic jet fighter and was built by English Electric, now British Aerospace, in Lancashire. To mark its anniversary, the aircraft performed a flypast. The pilot who flew the plane on its first flight from
the day before Paul's birthday, I just got back from slow dancing down at the discotheque. It's about 3:06 in the morning. Got to slow dance and hang around with a little cute girlie named I forget her name. But wearing my Beatles. I drink a little rum and Coke, and here's my Beatles medallion. But it's the 17th, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's already starting to get light outside, if you can believe that. And earlier today, I went to the Dire Straits concert. See this here? The Dire Straits, and they played over in Manchester. We took the bus. See, there's Marky Knopfler there. Dire Straits. There's the whole band there. And I need to pass out, I think, for a while, because it's like really starting to get a little bit late, you know, and it's like I'm real tired, you know, from the concert and everything, and I'm just going to kind of go to bed now, okay? Happy birthday, Paul, in a day or two.
It was turning in the Mersey and could have flooded the tunnel. There wasn't much space for the rescue team to work in, and they had difficulty getting one of the men out.
This is going on right down there.
We couldn't open the door any more than the 2 feet that we already had, so we had to stand him up.
Albert Dock, right here where I am,
the side
Liverpool
of the door,
still.
Then lay him flat again, and then using
the Liverpool
ropes and
story.
hoists, bring him to the surface in the vertical. As you can see, that the access to these sewerage which works is very narrow. So the only way we could get him out was coming up vertically.
The men were taken to the Royal Liverpool Hospital, where one is being treated for pelvic injuries, 2 have broken legs, and the others have been treated for shock. A health and safety investigation is already underway, and inspections have taken place this afternoon.
Obviously, if there has been a breach of particular legislation, that specific construction regulations,
right
or the Health and Safety at Work Act, then we pursue that, we look at that, and as an organisation, we do prosecute individuals, really, and companies, if they have failed to discharge a particular duty under the Health and Safety at Work Act, or under any of the construction regulations.
North West Water were using contractors to inspect the sewer. They and Liverpool City Council will take part in the investigation.
Detectives in Chester say a man found murdered in the city was convicted 7 years ago of killing his wife. Edward Jones was apparently drowned in the bath.
Scheme to turn the site into the North's best sports arena. Developers say the facilities will be built even if Manchester fails to get the Games. Next month, Manchester representatives travel to Barcelona, where this year's Olympics take place. They'll meet Olympic officials to discuss the bid.
It will be the Northern Arena for indoor athletics.
Manchester,
and the Northern Arena for other activities. So therefore it will generate business in its own right. So the arena will happen, with or without the Olympics.
And we turn now to a noisy dispute between motorcyclists and walkers over who has the right of way through much of our most...
Well, he says, Paul McCartney says he's not going to read this book, and his agent says that it's genuinely unauthorised, and, what are your sources? What are your sources for all the stories that you tell?
Well, I think that Paul's reaction is predictable, that he is, in my mind, unquestionably the greatest melodist certainly of the rock era, and possibly of the 20th century. The another aspect of him is this determination, which I bring out in the book, that he must actually control the kind of things that he's involved in. In other words, he wants to keep reins on his public image. So if I go away and write a book which doesn't present him necessarily in the kind of favourable light entirely that he would like to present himself in, then he's going to turn his back to it.
Well, you certainly, although you're quoting other people when you say this, you don't say this yourself. You certainly sort of say that he seemed to be very spoiled in the early days of the Beatles.
He was very determined to become a star. That he was always the most conscious of his public image. John Lennon, in the words of Rhett Butler, frankly couldn't give a damn, but Paul always could. He wanted to present himself as the cheeky chap. It was all part of a kind of the show business aspect of the Beatles. Lennon was much more spontaneous, much more free-form, much more bohemian. But at the same time, and what I don't overlook in the book, is the enormous credit that Paul must take for the success of not only of the Beatles, of course, but for the subsequent
career.
But I mean, that the Beatles we've come to regard it as John Lennon plus three others. It's very unfair on Paul. From say the Sgt. Pepper album onwards, it really was Paul McCartney and three others.
You've actually only spoken to Paul McCartney once, though, haven't you? Was that in 1980 when he was when he had the great pleasure of being a guest of the Japanese government for. Sort of a rather foolish move of bringing some illegal substances into the one country in the world that takes a very draconian view of it. He was actually very lucky not to still be there. Not to spend more time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Japanese were absolutely furious at this.
But my point,
they were also. I mean, one of the things that they were really upset about was, of course, that because he'd had problems with drugs before, they had been reluctant to let him in, and they'd taken absolute guaranteed assurances that his behaviour had reformed. So,
the point I was making really was that the thing is, I'm not criticising unauthorised biographies as a form, but there's always this question mark in one's head, isn't there, when you read them? And I'm sure you feel the same about other similar books that other people have written. If you're not actually spoken to the guy concerned, and he hasn't cooperated, how can one be sure that everything in there is true?
I spoke to a great number of people, some of them on the record, some of them off the record, who have been involved in all throughout McCartney's life, right from the beginning, right from his childhood. I spoke to someone who actually was at the parish fete when he met John Lennon. So I've got a very clear picture of what he's like. One has to be very careful because it is unauthorised. You tend to get people who don't particularly like him speaking, and you've got to try and redress the balance yourself.
Yes, people just venting their spleen.
Yeah, I mean, that's not fair to Paul. I mean, so in fact, if you're a fan of McCartney, you're not going to be disappointed in the book.
Right. Well, good, because I have unbounded admiration for him.
It's not an wonderful.
Yes, Ross knows Paul McCartney better than Andrew Morton knows the Princes of Wales.
But you still feel that book shouldn't have been published, so how do you feel about poor old Paul?
No comment.
Obviously a lively household at the Stewart Bensons.
But mind you, Andrew Morton didn't have the opportunity of interviewing Princess Diana in prison. Anyway, that's another story. Still to come, Stop the World, he wants to stay young. I should say thank you both very much indeed. And for bearing with us in this incredible... Isn't it hot in here?
It's baking.
Yes, you can sign the petition when you leave. For new air conditioning system. Right, joining us soon, Anthony Newley, father of four, two of course with Joan Collins. He tells us why we should all be better parents. See you in a minute.
Maybe a chance of a shower later on this afternoon running
He's running around like
elsewhere, plenty of sunshine around. We're not talking about totally blue sky. Down in the southwest, though, lovely day, especially on the southern coast here. Plenty of sunshine, lovely temperatures. Enjoy your day. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Well, now that all that wonderful hot weather is here, everyone's desperate for ways to stay cool. So Susan Brooks has got the food idea.
Maxwell were charged with conspiracy to defraud this morning by the City of London Police. Their business colleague Larry Tracton changed the face of popular music, making himself millions in the process. He's celebrating his half-century quietly at home in Sussex with his family. Louise Bevan looks back on the long and winding road of his career.
When I was younger, so much younger than today, never needed anybody helping anyway. But now
he is older and he's richer, but the working-class boy from Liverpool shows no signs of giving up the career that made him a multi-million-pound star. McCartney's come a long way since the heady days of Beatlemania in the 60s, when the so-called Fab Four sent adoring fans into a frenzy. But it was his talent with Lennon as a songwriter that sold records, over 1 billion in all, making him the most successful artist in American recording history.
I really admire Paul McCartney, and especially for what he was, because the Beatles songs of the 60s were as great a catalogue of songs as I think there has ever been.
The phenomenal success of the Beatles was a hard act to follow, but more than 2 decades after the band split up, McCartney is still successful in his own right.
It's crazy to expect that he's going to come out and influence us as much as he once did. It will be great to have a few more hit records from him, which I'm quite confident we will enjoy, and it'll be great to see him in concert performing some of the songs that he's given to us.
McCartney admits it's his fans that guide him.
As you make your records, you write them, and you sing them, and you mix the records kind of in private, and then you try them out on people. And it's really only then, when you're in front of an audience, that you see if you've done it right or not.
At 50, McCartney has much to celebrate. He has more golds and platinum discs than any other performer in history, and 32 of his songs have reached #1.
His income is variously estimated at over £20 million a year, and his total fortune could be as high as £500 million. But he still wants to keep going.
As McCartney celebrates his half-century, many will reflect on their own lost youth and the passing of an era which made musical history.
Lost youth. Didn't he also write something about being needed when he was 64? We can look forward to that at least. Yes. We'll take a short break now. We're back with a summary of the day's main news and a full weather forecast.
And happy birthday, Paul.
Birthday, our talking point asked whether the great
it's time for me to check out.